welcome back to the What's Next podcast. So glad you came back. I'm Steve, your host. We've got an amazing show for you today. Today we've got back Miss Hannah. How are you today, my dear?
I'm good. How are you? Good, Steve.
We've known each other for, 4 or 5 years or so. You were on the podcast like one of the first ones before we even did cameras.
I know.
So I'm so stoked to have you back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ancient times. Good
Long
to be
time
back.
ago, right? You were just kind of finishing up some studies and you were kind of figuring out what's the next direction you want to go to. And now you're dialed in, ready to go. So what are you doing?
So now I am graduated with my master's in Ayurveda and integrative medicine.
Wow.
So I've been doing a lot of consulting and like program work with people to help them build more of a lifestyle around health. And I started dabbling into this, and this is what we kind of like started to talk about in the last podcast through yoga. So yoga was really kind of a catalyst for me to start to really understand and not only how my body works, but how I can kind of like optimize it. And I was just chatting with a friend the other day who I originally did my yoga teacher training with. And I was like, I feel like I'm aging backwards because of just the way we've been taught to like take care of our bodies with yoga. And so Ayurveda, what I got my master's in, is how you bring yoga, a conscious approach to life, off of the mat, and how you can like build health through preventative care, through diet, lifestyle. Yeah. So I'm kind of just like yoga all around, 360.
Well, that Ayurveda kind of covers the whole spectrum of stuff, doesn't it? Beyond just the physical.
100%. It's a lot of like tuning in with the season.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, lots of like seasonal like diets or just like nutrition and understanding how you kind of like mold your activity to whatever season you're into. So like winter, it's harsher in temperatures typically. So in turn, an Ayurvedic perspective to movement in the winter would be some softer movements, slower movements that really like instill grounding, you know? So there's lots of different like areas to kind of touch on, but I've been loving it.
Yeah. That's fantastic.
Thanks.
Now we don't, do you want to say where you're working now, or?
Yeah, so I work locally at Om Studios in Monterey, and I teach yoga, hot Pilates, and barre classes, which is kind of like a ballet type of exercise.
That's a little more hardcore than the other one, isn't it? The barre. Yeah,
it is. Right. But they all have their challenging aspects.
Right.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I teach locally at Om, and then I teach privately, group classes all over the peninsula, Carmel Valley.
Yeah, all over the place. Mm-hmm. You know, I've tried to send a few clients over, but you never know whether they make it or not.
Yeah, I like to hope they do.
Somebody will say, God, I'm so tired. I'm having so many problems, along with massage. Do you know anybody that's yoga? I pass your name on, but you don't ever hear. And I've heard you the same thing, too, but I don't know whether they've made it here or
they
not.
They do.
But we do kind of lend to each other.
And I love that. Like, your work is so preventative, and so is mine. And I think, I'm sure through your clients you see this, but the more people get a taste of how they start to feel better and feel good through like the quote unquote like self-care and the preventative work, like the more they're going to be apt to want to do it because they realize they're able to get through stuff like on a number of different levels easier, not just physically, but I'm sure like mentally, emotionally, you release stuff. Like we mentioned that in massages. You're just like, you're holding so much here. And I'm like, I know.
Like, stop it. You're going to make me cry.
Yeah. And that's a lot of the yoga too, though. Like I'll see it. And my students like, the body keeps the score. You hold stuff.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I think that, and a lot like massage, I think it's hard to get people to make that first initial.
It's the threshold. Exactly.
Get that threshold and just walk in the front door of the yoga place.
It's so true. They're like, I'm always getting asked, how do I start? You just go.
Right.
You just go.
Whether they're afraid of being hurt or whether they're just not the kind of person that would take care of themselves, just everybody else.
Right.
It's like, so that's what you have to work on. Get them in the front door of the massage or the yoga or bar or anything. Once you get a week into it, you're just going to be addicted to it.
It's so true.
Yeah.
It opens you up.
Sure.
You know, it makes you more sensitive.
Right.
Which in a way, people are like, more sensitive. But then it's like, you want to be more sensitive to things. You want to like have attunement to what's going on around you.
Right.
I agree.
When I do massage, I do a lot of, obviously there's a lot of blood movement. I'm trying to work all the toxic crap through your body and get it back into the bloodstream so your system can deal with it and get rid of it.
Right. Right.
So that's
it's emotional
very interesting.
too. Yeah, for
sure.
Bit.
Yeah.
Have you ever had anyone like cry during a massage?
Yeah. Right, sure. A lot of PTSD.
Yeah.
We got a lot of military here.
Oh, yeah.
That have seen way too much.
For sure.
And they're tough guys, but there's only so much you can take.
Oh, yeah. I heard this joke once, and they were saying how you've had to have gone through some like intense shit to be a yoga teacher. And it's true, because it's like I consider myself kind of like a healer, you know, like I have a big group, a big room, and I'm working all of their bodies, but I'm also speaking on like yogic philosophy, which is a lot of themes of like letting go, like self-love, forgiveness, all of these topics that are honestly a little uncomfortable, but I'm making your mind work with your body. And that's what we're doing, you know, it's mind-body connection, getting everything in tune.
Right. Yeah.
And so that can bring about emotion too.
For
a lot,
sure.
You know?
Yeah. I had a couple of weeks ago, I had Karen Lewis on, and I know you work with her daughter. And she was just an amazing lady. And after listening to her go through that, it was like, you know what, I want to get into this. But the more I look into it, it's like, I don't know if I'm ready to heal people yet. Yeah. I need to go through some of that before I learn to teach it or heal other people. You don't really realize that until, you're confronted with that. Probably yoga's the same thing. It's like,
you had
to kind of go through yourself first.
100%.
Right?
That's what it is. It's the journey through the self to the self.
The journey, right on.
Yeah, it is. It's true. And I think that's what really got me invested in yoga when I started. I was like emotionally, mentally going through a really challenging time, and that's what led me to the training. Prior, when I was doing yoga in high school, it was just like a very physical practice, which I think is an entry point for a lot of people. It's like simple, it's your shell, like whatever, I'm stretching. But it's not just stretching.
Right.
Like it's so much deeper than that. And that's what I really came away with and got me like hooked after I started just learning about the philosophy. Honestly, I grew up like very Christian, to be honest. So like you learn about the Bible, but my parents were always very inclusive. Like we traveled, not like super traditional, but I have that background in me. So I was very coming from that kind of like upbringing, interested in the stories of like Buddha and like the philosophy of just where it came from. And that also like brought me into care about Ayurveda and the way these people lived, which yoga and Ayurveda both originate from India. And that's where I finished my degree, in India. I studied there for a month. And yoga out there is very different from yoga out here. It's like so westernized out here and like way more of a physical practice. But there, it's more like a meditation. Like people go a lot slower, you know, and they really focus on that. And I find the more that I teach, that's more of what I need, the slower, even though I love the intensity. That's what I live for, like the intense classes, like building the heat. But I like to approach like the conversation to be soft, like even if I'm like making them like sweat their asses off, like I'm like, this class is about self-love. Like how does like meeting yourself in an uncomfortable position have you inflect some awareness of how you like talk to yourself or things like that, because the mind in yoga is the greatest karma.
Right.
Yeah. It gives us everything we need to challenge us.
Oh, for sure. Well, I'll tell you, Melinda does the barre class on Beachbody.
Love it. Yeah.
Amazing. And, if she's doing it in the morning while I'm getting ready for work.
That's great.
It's like I walk out of there, I'm smiling because it's just all affirmations.
Oh, yeah.
One after another after another.
Yeah.
It's just beating the crap out of them. But this self-love, like you're talking about, it's just, I just walk out of the house smiling. I'm not even doing it. I'm just hearing it in the background.
Yes.
I'm telling you, right?
Yes.
That's fantastic.
That's amazing. I love to hear that.
Yeah, that's really cool. Mm-hmm. So you do that like positive affirmations and
yeah, I do. It's not so much affirmations, but it's more like how I was talking about how you guys like riff. Like all like I like philosophy, like books and like yogic texts. Like there's a book called the Yoga Sutras that an ancient yogic philosopher named Patanjali wrote. It's kind of like the Bible has like 10 commandments. So there are yoga sutras, and with them, it's just different ways to like achieve enlightenment, like to come into places of contentment with life, you know? And so with that, the philosophy that I teach, it's not like I love myself, you know, it's not, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's not as typical as you might think. Like the last theme that I did was a lot on self-love specifically, and how we talk about how familiarity can build contempt, right? And so that's a lot of the reasons why we fall, quote unquote, out of love with people, because we get so familiar with them, right? And that's a lot of the ways we're taught to understand love is through that like romantic lens, right?
Interesting.
Right. But if I were to say, who are you the most familiar with in terms of familiarity building contempt, it would be yourself.
I see.
So who do you think you have the most contempt for? Like, who do you think you're the hardest on?
Right.
Yourself.
Yeah.
You know? So that's like kind of like how I would theme. I'd like dive into that.
Sure, right. Learn how to love yourself again.
Yeah, it's a process.
Forgiveness and all that stuff.
It's not like bubble baths, you know? And like just, I am great. I am special. You know, it's more.
People love me.
Yeah.
People often associate that with being superficial.
Yeah.
And so they attach that whole approach that it's a superficial thing.
And yes.
And what you're saying is that there's a lot more depth.
There's so much more depth because, and what really hooks people is, well, what about when you're not special? Like if I were to ask you, why should you love yourself? And you're like, oh, it's because I'm special. Well, what about when you're not being special? Or what about when like you're being judgmental? Are you not worthy of love then? Answer the question. Like, yeah, I am.
Right.
So it's about like that hardness, like maybe like really understanding like where you shame yourself more.
I didn't know what to answer. It was like yes or no. I don't know. Maybe.
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
No, I
you
tell
are
myself
worthy.
When I
is
love
the
myself
point,
when I'm
right. Yeah.
Can't love myself when I'm being judgmental and being bad.
No, you can't. And that's a theme that I love to instill, is that we can never transform from a place of judgment.
I see, right.
No matter which way you want to transform, if you're judging yourself, you're never going to be able to like break out of that box because there's judgment like holding you in.
Yeah. Right. I remember when you took off for India, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I didn't see you for a while, and then I was walking through the store, and I saw you checking out. I didn't want to bother you.
I know.
Oh, she's
and
back.
I went to you before I left because I had like a 24-hour flight, and I was like, Steve, I'm going to need you before that
Help
trip.
me. You're probably a little worried about what you were getting into, too, though, I'm sure.
No, yeah, India's wild.
Yeah.
It was definitely a culture shock.
Tell me.
But I'm so glad that I went, and I can't wait to go back. I was in southern India, which I think is a little less intense than I would say the northern part of India, where a lot of it's called like the Golden Triangle up there. There's a lot of like just like Mumbai, you know, like it's just a lot of crowds. Like what you would picture India to be like is more northern, you know. So I was southern India, which is where Ayurveda originated, and it's called Kerala with a K. And Kerala is on the coast and a little bit slower. And I'm so glad that I had that entry point, because even though it was a culture shock, it felt familiar to me to be on the coast, you know, and it's slower there because it's coastal. Like they're very into, in terms of food, like coconuts, you know, fish, you know, that's what they really thrive on down there. What it looked like for me being out there was how nurses in Eastern and Western culture, have clinicals. Like they go in, they are like a nurse in training or like shadowing a doctor, and like they're going in, they're doing everything. That's what I did in India at an Indian Ayurvedic hospital. It was called Sri Dareem, and it's it's a focus on an eye hospital is the main focus on what they do. But there were patients there from like 5 years old to like elderly, and they were all there for different holistic treatments. And so while I was staying there, I was undergoing clinicals and like conferences, like trainings in a room with a doctor, but I was also going around the hospital and shadowing doctors, like working with patients. And also I was receiving treatments that some of these patients were getting therapeutically, which was a lot, but it was good. Like I was thrown into it, and very different from your type of massage. So a lot of the therapies that they use there involve oil. They're huge on oil, and how ingesting it, using it as like a topical modality is just so nourishing for the body. It's like this like elixir is kind of like how they describe it. So their massages, they do a lot for health on a number of different levels, like not just like the physical plane of like getting into your muscles, but they move blood, they move fascia, they move lymph, and the way they do it, it's two people, and they're like long sweep. There's a technique, but it's like sweeping strokes up and down, and it's a hard board, like wooden table, not like your nice
comfy
bed. No, and you're like getting sloshed up and down like with two women, and it's kind of intense. It's not like you would get something done out here, but to that prevail, I do think it is effective. And I had this done for days, and that was like one treatment. Another one was I would go in a steam box where just my head is exposed, and they pump herbalized steam into the box, and the herbs are like tailored to what my body needs after a physical examination initially upon entering the hospital. So like I had like basically like a prescription of everything that I needed to get done there based on how I showed up for those clinicals and for my time. And so I had that massage done. I got the steam box done. I did a treatment with eyes as well. They even did one that's called a basti, which is for colon cleansing, where they basically put oil up your butt.
Hello.
And it's like, but it's so good, and it flushes you out. And I left there like feeling so great, and I saw the work that they were doing with patients there. There was a young man that went into that hospital that was blind from a seizure initially, and he had been there for weeks, and within his time there, he had already started to not only like make out shapes again, but started to regain his vision again from the herbalized treatments that he got there. So that means no surgery.
Right.
That means no prescription. Okay.
Just getting
Just
toxins
hearing
out.
that, it's kind of mind-blowing to people. And I'm not a proponent of like we don't need surgery and we don't need antibiotics. We do. But I do think that our culture is missing such a huge aspect of preventative care and things that we could do naturally that aren't going to send everything else into haywire, you know? And that's really why I fell in love with it, because people truly can heal from this way, and not like, I have never been one that's been on medication, thankfully, like what a blessing. But there are people that are, and for seemingly the rest of their life. And that's something that I want to help like fight against, you know? And because when you're under those medications, a lot of the time we're dealing with also symptom management, we're not really getting to the root cause of what's going on, and then symptoms are creating more symptoms, and then you just become this like case, like this specimen that's just ingesting things to just stay afloat, right? And it shouldn't be just staying afloat. Like I want people to like feel the yoga of like you're thriving, you know, and
Exactly.
preventative care is so key. Like it's what we put in, it's what we ingest, it's what we listen to, it's our environment, like how we go about the season. Are you pushing through winter when you should be like a little softer? Like that's going to throw you off balance. That's Ayurveda, you know? Yeah, so like
very interesting.
Yeah.
Well, you came from the East Coast.
I did. I came from the East
So
Coast.
it sounds like you started studying in high school.
Kind
or started working with yoga, or where'd you get going on this?
I think I talked about this with you in the initial chat, but my mom, I would say, is like a really big proponent for kind of raising me like this. I did start yoga initially because my mom was doing it too in high school, and I loved it. It was a physical practice. It didn't really like hit my soul yet, or my emotions yet, but I was like, I loved it, you know?
Yeah.
And then my mom also was very into cooking our food, which is Ayurveda. Good. She wasn't a big proponent of like diet culture, which was huge in my time,
sure was.
And still is, honestly. And also she, like being from the East Coast, she was also a teacher. So she like had that mindset. Like my mom had a cauldron like over the stove, like a pilgrim. And she would like make food like that.
Right.
And she had a garden where we would like get stuff. Like I remember learning that echinacea tea looks like a spiky bulb and it's used for your immunity. And that's an Ayurvedic herb. You know,
No
my mom grew it.
It's like,
so it's like really.
That's in my memory banks. I know that.
Exactly.
Cool.
So it does feel like I'm going back to my roots in that way. Like I'm not trying to, I don't think like being a quote unquote doctor is my wheelhouse. I'm not that like, but I do consider myself a practitioner.
Right.
And I do think that doctors in a way and the healthcare system are missing a lot of the humanity aspect. And I started to, dive into Ayurveda out here working for a local clinic that is no longer, but it was called Living Ayurveda. And the doctors there, it was a husband and wife team, Jeff and Susan Turner. And I mentioned that in our first recording too, but they showed me what it was, how having a relationship with a client can be one of the single most importance to their healing.
Say that again.
Having a relationship with your patient can be one of the single most important proponents to their healing and their achievement of success in their goals.
That's important.
It's so important.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how frustrated I would get with my own health and with my friend's health, going to a doctor, being seen for 2 minutes, and then like being cast aside without any questions being asked. You should see the health intake I send my clients. It is pages. Like I am going into detail with these people, and the detail helps them notice things too. You know, it's like, oh, I guess my digestion isn't great. I don't go to the bathroom then. Or like, you know, my energy does dip down there, you know, or things like that. And it's like, I do feel really heavy after eating. Wait, I shouldn't feel like that. And it's like all of these things, bringing it to their attention, and because I care about the detail, is like a reframe of health for me and like what I want people to help to understand, because health is like your most valuable possession. If you don't have your health, you have nothing. And like, it's not just your physical body, it's your emotional body and your mind. And that's the yoga with the Ayurveda, right?
I think you're in a really good time.
I do.
I mean, with the pharmaceutical companies are, you know, starting to get called out now.
They truly are. And I think more access to people getting like understanding of their labs and their blood work.
Right.
There's more focus on that, which I'm learning how to read labs right now. And that's so useful. And that's Western medicine that I love, you know, reading labs is like so much information, like knowing what people are low in, like where they're high, what's actually normal versus what people like tell you is like the general population for normal, right?
Yeah.
Like this stuff matters. We do need a tailored approach to health because we're all different. but it doesn't have to be so complicated, and it needs to be sustainable.
Right.
Right?
I think people are shifting to that point where, how do I get healthy, or how do I stay healthy?
Yes. In my time, it was a lot of diet.
Yeah,
you know,
well,
like
that's
the
not
zone
it.
diet.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
I don't know
like
what that is,
Atkins,
but yeah.
I don't know.
That can't be good for you.
No, it's not.
I've seen some really heavy people just slim right down.
There's tons of shit in that food.
Is
and
it?
it's
Yeah,
like, that's what I'm teaching people. I'm reframing what health is, you know?
Yeah.
It's simple. It's really simple. We just got to get back to those roots, you know? And I mean, GLP-1s are huge right now. Like, people want...
What's that?
It's like Ozempic, right? Like,
Jesus,
so
I know. Have mercy.
Everyone's on the stuff, but I mean, in my eyes, that shows me that we all collectively do want to feel good. Like, we all collectively do want to, like, be in our bodies and have a mind-body connection.
Right.
And what I'm not going to, like, speak on the topic of GLP-1s, but I will say that I have heard the feedback is that food noise is reduced when people start taking GLP-1s. So what I hear with that being said is that people are, like, numbing themselves out with food.
To what their body's telling their brain what they need.
There's no sensors anymore for them to realize, like, when I'm full, when I'm not, and they're using food as an emotional thing. It is an emotional thing.
Right. Well,
it's not often taught that it is, but it is. And, like, people lean on that. It's a comfort, right?
Oh, you can see it everywhere.
And then their comfort becomes their demise. You know?
Yeah, that's well said.
Yeah.
Well said.
Thanks.
For sure.
Yeah.
So your mom started you down this Ayurvedic.
Yeah, she really did. Kind of with how she instilled cooking.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no.
The way she cooks, the way she brought you up and everything, and then you came out to California?
Yeah, I mean, I
you just wanted to get out, or what?
I mean, yeah, I did want to get out.
Yeah.
I typical fell into college, like, tried, like, lean cuisines, you know, and, like, opposite of what my mom taught me, because I'm not in the house anymore.
It says lean cuisine. It must be good.
But then I quickly realized, like, it wasn't making me feel good, you know? And then I did come out to California and always had a dream and a desire to come out here. I started to live out here, and then I got unhealthy.
Did you?
To be honest.
Right.
Like, and it was... maybe not, like, on the surface unhealthy, but under the surface unhealthy.
Right.
And that's what really, like, brought me to dive into my physical health more. I started to look into naturopaths out here because I knew that's the route my mom had, like, instilled in me and I knew worked.
Right.
So I started looking out here, and then I started to dive into the yoga. You know, I was at a really low point in my life, and like I said with that joke, like, yoga teachers have to have gone through, like, some shit to be able to hold down a room and still, like, heal people, but, like, hold your energy, right, and not take it in. So it's like, to do that, I did get to a low point with my health and with myself. And then I started to build it back up, like, through these practices. And that's a testament to say that, like, if you have kind of, like, that, like, grit to stick with yourself, I do sometimes think in a lot of, like, teachings that said that you have to hit, like, a dark night of the soul, or, like, you have to, like, be brought down to your knees to, like, get a rock bottom. And sometimes it truly is that, you know, and you got to get there to be able to, like, bring yourself back up and out, you know. Hopefully it doesn't have to be that for everyone and like all the time, but sometimes it is the case.
Well, maybe hopefully it is.
Yeah.
You know, because you're going to come across people that are at that place.
I do all the time.
You need to know what that place is.
I do all the time.
Right.
Right. And that's why I feel like I can hold space for that.
Right.
Yeah.
How cool.
Yeah.
Well, it seems like you were doing yoga in your youth. So when you weren't feeling so good out here, you're like, okay, let's get back to the basics.
Exactly.
What made me feel good back when I felt good.
Exactly.
And then just kind of picked it up from there.
I was almost at that desperate point.
Right.
Of, like,
that's what it feels like.
Straws.
Right.
Yeah.
Sure.
Good
for
I
you.
think a lot of people do get to that point where they're like grasping.
Sure.
But I want to give them something that is sustainable, right? And that's personal, because I think sometimes, and just get you in the door, right? Sometimes I think the hardest thing is we set these expectations that are outlandish for ourselves, and then it's like you're already setting yourself up for failure because you're putting your bar here and you're here. So like start it where you can reach it and where you know you're going to hit it, and then you're going to start to train yourself like, oh, I hit it. It's a placebo effect. You get a reward for doing something that's beneficial to you.
Yeah.
So then you're setting that up, and that is self-love.
Yeah, buddy.
Yeah, buddy.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So what's next?
What's next? I'm going to keep growing the business.
Yeah.
I'm actually talking, in terms of like the clients, the one-on-one work, that's like my jam. I love that. I'm going to continue to hopefully host public workshops. I do those through OM. I try to do them quarterly, so like one every other month or so. I hosted my first yoga Ayurveda retreat this past year.
Okay, I got to hear about these. Wait, what was the retreat? Tell me that.
Okay,
what was that all
so
about?
it was with my yoga studio, OM, and it was our first one. So I like spearheaded it, and we took them down to San Luis Obispo area by Avila Beach, and we went to a hot spring resort. We had 2 yoga classes a day. We did hikes. I did an Ayurvedic cooking class with them. Taught them how to cook. We had like a family dinner. It was an amazing retreat, and even better, which is what the outcome that I wanted from that was, such a community was built, and that's like seen everywhere in the studio now. Like I see all these little friend groups from that retreat.
How cool.
And it like warms my heart.
Right.
But
must have felt like a rock star coming out of there.
I did. And it's always been a goal of mine to do that. So to like have it actually come to fruition felt really, really good.
Yeah, right.
So that being said, I want to keep the momentum up, and I had a meeting today about getting another one going. And this one I'm hoping to do in Greece.
What?
So it's going to be an international retreat.
Cool.
I know, and I'm really excited. I have one of my friends who's a student at OM, his father, and he is from Greece. So they have a property there.
Wow.
And I think it's going to be a very cultural experience. Definitely the yoga and Ayurveda are going to be incorporated. And I'm aiming for October, like a fall launch date, and we're going to be opening it up to the community in Monterey. So
how fun.
Yeah, that'll be a nice little experience this year that I'm hoping to get going.
A couple of weeks ago we had a guy in here that's he's a lavender farmer.
So cool.
He's got this beautiful property, and he's starting to think, you know what, I'd like to have maybe some weddings out here, or maybe some yoga retreats. I'm like, wow.
Absolutely.
How fantastic would that be? He's got a creek running through.
Where is it?
Oh, he's in Monterey, right? Just outside of Monterey.
Connect us.
But I mean, it's a calming, he makes.
Oh, lavender is so
he makes like pillows and little towels and blankets, and they're marketing them all over the country to hospitals. And it's just like, now he's thinking about maybe doing stuff on the property. I was like, wow, what a great place to do yoga with that aroma in the air.
Have you been to the farm?
I haven't, no. We just had him in here and had him on the podcast. He was telling us how he and his wife are getting this thing going.
That's awesome.
Fantastic, dude.
Amazing.
So, yeah, well,
let me know. I'd love to hear about him.
Yeah, whenever they're ready. I know that's their future plans, so I don't know when they're ready to rock and roll. But
that'd be great.
Yoga down by the creek with all that.
I love that idea, and the lavender around you.
There's going to be a lot of people watch this. 7 or 8 people watch this podcast, and they're going to be like, I want to do this.
Amazing.
This lady's amazing. What can I do to be this lady and help heal people? Where would you direct people to start?
If you're interested in Ayurveda, I have a free Intro to Ayurveda ebook that you can access and download, and that's available on my website, which is healthwhannah.com. Also accessed on my Instagram, which is healthwhannah. You can also look at Banyan Botanicals, which I really like for a resource on herbs and just additional Ayurvedic information, maybe on seasonality, how you can do that. I think they also have a dosha quiz on there.
So there's different avenues.
There's lots of different avenues.
Oh,
in terms of yoga, if you want to start practicing, there's a new student special going on where it's $59 for a month unlimited of yoga and barre classes, which is a screaming deal because usually a drop-in's like $25-$30.
Right.
So $60 for a month of ever many classes you want.
Right.
That's a deal.
Right.
And yeah, follow me on Instagram, Health with Hannah, and my website. I'm offering free 15-minute phone consults to gain new clients. So if anyone is interested in kind of like a tailored approach to their health, or if they have something that they really want to work with balancing, or just like weight loss, digestive, gut health in general, those are really like my specialities. They can send me a message on my Instagram, Health with Hannah, or an email.
That's fantastic, because that's what I was saying. It's so hard to maybe get them to take that first step in the front door.
Yeah, the free 15-minute call is great, because then they can give me a little info. We can have a conversation.
Right.
And then I can give them like kind of a play-by-play of what the next steps would be, so they can gain some awareness of what they're signing up for and what that looks like.
Yeah.
For a lot of my clients, it's like time in the grocery store. I'll go to the grocery store with them and I'll tour them around the grocery store, talking to them all about food value. And then another session would be really diving into your health intake, like where your body's currently sitting. We'd go through your form all together. Another one could be a gym session, a workout session. If your like goal is to like lose body fat and like gain muscle, that could be a tailored approach. So there's lots of different ways that I approach each client.
Wow, cool.
Yeah.
Maybe we can get into the grocery store with you with a camera and
Yes.
just follow you around and say,
God,
what are we doing
fun.
here?
Or a farmer's market.
Right.
My jams, yes.
Be fantastic, right? How cool is that?
Amazing.
Wow.
So Ayurveda, it's a form of healthcare that originated in India. And we have record to date, based on texts that have been recorded, that it dates back over 5,000 years. Wow. So this form of healthcare that started in India has a big proponent of preventative care, but also that about 80% of all disease originates in the gut, in your digestive system. So since that is like the center of our being, a lot of Ayurveda focuses on how you can apply diet and lifestyle to help heal your gut, but also adapt with the seasons and create more balance in that. So I use the example of doing like a really harsh workout in winter, and how that would not be very Ayurvedic or balancing, because the qualities of the two are different. So Ayurveda focuses a lot on qualities. So we're trying to create equilibrium with Ayurveda. So that being said, if I'm working with a client that has a lot of heat, a lot of like acidity in their gut, an Ayurvedic approach to healing that issue would be to bring equilibrium. So what's the opposite of heat? Coolness. Okay, so cooling down a gut would involve me bringing in practices that are involving like spices, different foods that have cooling effects, like cardamom, fennel, coconut. These are all cooling things that would really bring down heat in the gut. But understanding the root cause is truly the definition of Ayurveda. So it's getting to the root of the issue. It's not dealing with symptom management. It's understanding your symptoms and how you can heal them from the root so they don't keep coming back up. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
That's fantastic, right? So as far as like gut health, you always hear about gut health.
Yes.
How most of it's not really us; it's more of other different animals in
and
there
gut
that
health
are actually
that people might not think is associated with brain health.
I see, yeah.
And brain health can affect thyroid health, and thyroid health can affect your liver. Like there are it's all
Chain
a domino
reaction.
effect. So that's what I mean by it starts there.
Right.
Because 70% of the body's entire immunity is in the gut. It's there.
Okay.
So if that starts to get compromised, everything else can go haywire. Women's hormones, men's hormones, our lifestyle, is kind of toxic, to be honest. Like we have lots of like artificial stuff swirling around us that we're breathing in, and just like surrounded by artificial light. So like getting back to like simplicity and basics is a huge proponent and portion of Ayurveda as well. So it's really like bringing down that toxic load and like getting you to a place where you're able to like absorb and take in life again, you know, and that's like bringing down toxic load in the gut, bringing down toxic load in your mind, right? In like the environment around you. So that's where like lifestyle comes into play. Like I tell my clients, like no technology in the bedroom. Like cell phones at the end of the day and like looking at a screen can wind your nervous system up so high that you have an issue going to sleep. And then that affects your brain health.
For sure.
you know? So it's so connected. And Ayurveda makes sense to me. It makes a lot of sense. So it's a Sanskrit term, Ayur and Veda. Ayur, Ayur, is defined as the study of, and Veda, Veda, is life, the science of or the study of life.
Oh, how cool.
Okay, so you're learning how to like flow with life, right? So summertime, Ayurveda would say more cooling things. Because why? Because it's hot out. Right? So wintertime, you want more warming things, more nourishing things. If a woman's like trying to get pregnant, like, and this is Chinese medicine too, like it's a big thing to like keep your womb warm and like not let it get cold. Like,
right.
And that's huge. So like warming up the gut is big, like, and bringing down acidity. So these are some of the things I work a lot with my clients. And I try to take like the confusion of the term Ayurveda out of it because I just want them to get past that threshold of like why you're wanting to focus on your health now and what are your realistic goals and how I'm going to help you get there.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Right. How cool is that?
That's excellent.
Well, thanks for explaining that to
Thank
me
you.
because I was kind of wondering in the back of my head, I want to talk about this, but I don't know
it's
exactly
great.
what
Thank
it is.
you.
Now, is that brings to mind like chakras? Is that something that's brought into it?
A little bit. Like
or
there's
you're saying
energy,
the gut?
there's energy involved.
Okay.
Yeah, like for sure. Chakras are energy points on the body,
Right.
and those are used in yoga. And with that, I just want you to know, like in Ayurveda, I'm not talking about the chakras, but I'm talking about your energy.
I see.
I'm talking about that a lot. I'm like, okay, you're not grounded. So I'm not going to broach the topic of chakras, but I'm going to say like your root chakra is off, you know, like, so we're going to do some grounding practices, and that's within your diet. That's within how you're moving your body. And that's also within like meditation, like some breath work, things like that. Those are all different ways like we can teach grounding practices for someone that's dealing with like an unbalanced lower body chakra.
Yeah.
So if like their upper half is unbalanced, that usually would translate to this person's dealing like their upper chakras are unbalanced, like their third eye. They've got anxiety or they've got depression, right? So I would focus on how I could combat anxiety and depression and help heal those aspects, those energetic aspects, right?
Through diet and
through self-talk, through meditation, through the movement. Like all of those things come into play.
Right.
They all matter.
Breath work is very important too, because if you can overload the body with oxygen, there couldn't be anything better for
We're
you.
not breathing enough.
No, right.
or deep
deeply
enough. Yeah, exactly. Yes.
And holding, pushing, using that oxygen to overload your blood, it couldn't be any better for you.
And people don't even
They don't
think
understand.
about that. No, and it's like we need to learn the basic things, like how to drink water again, how to eat food again, and how to breathe again. And how to sleep again.
I know.
Like those such simple things, like if those are balanced and like thriving, like you would be surprised at how good you would show up if you had like those core values like stacked.
Right.
And people take them for granted, it's
it
like
just seems
the
too
breath,
simple.
like you don't even understand why people breathe up here. Like it's wild. When I'm like, okay, take your breath a little lower, they're like, what does that mean?
Right.
Like, it's here, or it's here, you know? And I'm just like, I feel it up there in you, But yeah, and it's the thing for women too. I know when I was learning yoga, like there was a technique called belly breathing. And having had disordered eating, that was hard for me to do. Like breathe in my belly, like expand my belly, make it bigger. Like that's weird. Like I like from a woman's like fucked up like perspective, like the diet culture, like it's uncomfortable. But
to push your belly out.
To push your belly out and like pull it in.
Think?
Yeah, right. Like, but why would my mind even go there? We're talking about breath work.
That's what I'm fighting
But that's
through.
the top, you know, like that's the root. I got to get back to why that person doesn't want to do the belly breathing before I can even get them to physically start the belly breathing. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
So that would be the Ayurveda of that issue.
Sometimes shoulders are up so high from whatever they've been going through or what they're going through.
Exactly.
Their collarbones are so locked up.
Oh,
They're just choking themselves out from all the oxygen and everything that's trying to get to their brain. They don't even realize it.
Right.
Get this, I got to get the shoulders to drop first.
Right.
Before I can get those collarbones out of their neck.
Exactly.
It's just right up here,
Exactly.
And it's just you're getting brain fog. You're getting, blocks off the blood that's trying to get down your arm. I got numbness or tingling in my fingers. It's like all this is just locked up.
Yeah, we're so aligned in that. It makes sense. It's so cohesive.
Right.
Exactly.
I send them to you to mellow them out first, and then I can drop their shoulders a little bit. Like you can take them down a notch for me.
Yes. But I love how you describe that too, because it's steps.
Exactly.
It's attainable steps.
Right.
Because you wouldn't start there, you would start here, right? And get that first because that's going to move.
Yeah.
And it's like you got to understand that because sometimes people, they stop before they even start because they just make it so challenging for themselves. And it's like they don't make it so that subtle ring of fire is subtle. Like it's big. And then it's like, I don't even want to cross that.
They just psych themselves out.
Exactly.
I think people want to be complicated, though. It's like that. It just can't be that easy. Breathing, food. Come on. But it really is.
It is.
I need to take a pill.
And I
need to see a doctor.
would say to that, if people don't want it to be easy, you're distracting yourself from something else.
For sure. Oh, that's a great point.
Yeah.
I'm gonna write that one down.
Okay, great.
Post it on the wall. Awesome.
Awesome.
All right. I've learned too much today. I'm going to have to go back and watch this again to relearn.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for coming in today. Is there anything else you want to cover?
Thank you so much for having me.
Anything coming up that you want us to know about? Or
Retreat in October. Look at Om. Check out everything else that I mentioned. And thank you so much.
Stoked.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, thanks for watching, guys. I hope you got something valuable out of it. Hit the subscribe button. Love you guys. See you soon.